You're listening to Mentoring Developers. I want to ask a question about learning something, a programming language that is in a completely different area of software development than what you're doing as your day job, or maybe you learn how to do Android development using Java. Is it a good idea for you to go learn, let's say, Angular or JavaScript or something completely different that you don't see how you're going to use it day to day, but just for the heck of it? What do you guys think? I want to get, some opinions out.
So I really like this question, and I like it because I think that it's one of those things that most people ignore or forget to speak about. Learning different languages and different frameworks can actually propel you further in the language that you write every single day. They can teach you a new mindset. They can teach you a new method of writing your code, or even structuring it in such a way that makes it easier for other developers that are coming into this to see your code and know what it's doing. For example, when you start off and you learn object-oriented programming, it's the bee's knees. It's what everyone likes. It's perfect. But then you learn Haskell and you're learning about functional programming. And then everything starts to make sense because they're all isolated pieces that operate on whatever is being called, and it works wonderfully. But then you go back to writing your object-oriented software, and you start taking some of those aspects and putting it back into your code, and it makes it so much more maintainable.
Okay, that's great. All right, the idea is that should you box yourself paint yourself into a corner, or should you specialize in one thing and be really good at it? And the only way to do that is to just keep doing it and keep increasing your reading on that topic and let's say that you want to be a JavaScript developer. Now, the basic level of JavaScript, that's easy. You can do it in a day or two. But if you want to do it in depth and you want to learn the ins and outs and all the different versions that are coming out and all the different tools that go with it, then it may take you years. You can become the JavaScript guy. Or you can say, well, I know this. Let me go learn something different. Let's say Ruby, and I'll just learn something just for the heck of learning it. And I'll learn just enough to get an idea of how the language works. And then it'll open up some new ideas in my mind. So when I go back to my day job doing JavaScript, for instance, then I will use that knowledge maybe without knowing that I've acquired this knowledge. I think that's the feeling I'm getting, that everybody is on board with this idea.
Yeah, for example, like in my younger years, the thing that I was doing was learning a lot of different languages like PHP, Ruby on Rails, Java, and what have you. But right now that I'm older, I decided to actually focus on Node.js and try to actually understand everything that there is about it. And in my case, embedded systems are my pet projects that I work to have some fun. So that's, for example, maybe this is an age thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting very old, and that's something that's switching in my head. But right now, I'm focusing on getting to know Node.js and C as much as possible.
Okay. So there are two things that can happen. You start off using a set of programming languages and tools, and later on in life, you start using something else. And that's a transition. You can certainly do that. But I wonder if you should be learning different things just because they're different, right? Am I hearing that everybody believes that we should learn different things because they're different?
I can chime in on that a little bit. As I was saying, once you know the basic, some basic concepts are extremely useful. I don't know if anybody remembers what Flash is, but I started with Macromedia Director, that then Adobe bought it, and then I started learning Flash, and then Apple killed Flash, and so you always have to be learning. And when I was younger and I was learning only one thing at a time, every transition was really hard. But also, every time you transition from one language to another, you realize, there's so many things that are similar from this thing to another. Like in the case from director to Flash. They had sprites, so that was kind of like a similar concept, and that was very interesting. Now in JavaScript you have the DOM, and so you kind of like there's once you like understand like things in like a little abstracter way, it's a lot easier to learn other stuff. And learning random stuff just because, in your free time or stuff like that is extremely useful, because we never know when JavaScript is gonna stop being cool. Maybe Swift becomes the next cool thing, maybe Rust does. So you always have to be prepared, because the languages might fall out of practice anytime. You never know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Certainly.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I was just going to say, certainly to that point of, you never know how, it's kind of the theme that's emerging is you never know how learning one thing is going to help you with some of the other things that you've done. Just a kind of non-coding example, my senior year of college, I learned Portuguese, and I speak Spanish already. And so learning Portuguese, and I spoke a little French, was like, wow, you can really kind of start to see how all those languages share that common Latin root, and how they took that common thing and branched out in different directions, which are very similar but slightly different. And I think that I was better at learning Portuguese because I spoke Spanish, and then because I speak Spanish, learning Portuguese has kind of given me a new perspective on speaking Spanish. And I would say the same thing is true. Certainly working with React the past 3 weeks at my new job has helped me understand Angular a little bit better. So yeah, just kind of throwing that out there, agreeing with everyone else.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in as well. My experience has been that I've been very lucky, or we're all lucky in a way, to be in this time period where information is so accessible. So, I find myself standing on the shoulder of giants. So when there is new technologies or new languages or even new workflows, and that's something that I'll speak to with an example, I'm lucky that I can look onto various communities, and I would say 3 or 4 developers that I follow closely. And as they experiment with new technologies, they kind of parse out and evaluate and analyze them so that, frankly, I don't have to. I have no problem admitting that, my time is very limited, and the more information that I can get that's already been worked through, then that's better for me. For example, kind of going back to WordPress theme development, I started working with a team called Roots, or learning from them. And just because I followed their starter theme from the beginning, when it was just taking a blank starter theme and eventually customizing it, what they started doing is integrating Gulp and Grunt and Bower, and in taking development principles and applying it to WordPress, which is fundamentally really not in line with a lot of standard development protocols and standards. So really being able to stand on the shoulders of giants has been a valuable tool for me as new technologies come along, because it's helped me to really find out from other people what works or not, but also learn new workflows that I can now apply to things that traditionally may not be the standard.
Okay, so my experience has been very interesting. I have worked in a lot of different technologies, and I ended up working in technologies lots of times that I didn't want to work in, because that's what we were using, or other circumstances forced me to do things that I didn't want to do. Hated it at that time. But every single one of those experiences has benefited me later on, especially learning some programming paradigms and dealing with customers and clients, even things that seem mundane. I ended up using that knowledge when I was interacting with other people who were doing that mundane things later on as an architect or as a consultant, that nothing that I have worked on in my life has ever gone to waste. That's my personal perspective on that.
That's a good little motto. I like that motto.
Yeah, there's no bad knowledge, right? That's the point. There's no such thing as like, I don't want to learn this, because it's not going to take away from your good stuff. It's not like if you learn something that you don't want to learn, it's going to stop you from learning something that you love later on. and it'll come back around somehow or the other, is going to enhance the quality of your coding, and the quality of your brand. Like if you were a person that, let's say that you went through the whole cycle and you did some QA in the beginning, maybe you were a project manager, you didn't want to do it, maybe you did a whole bunch of other roles, maybe you worked in embedded systems and all you wanted to do was work on React and Angular, and maybe you did all bunch of stuff up until the point you're able to do the things you love. And now you could be going back and thinking, well, the last 10 years of my life, I did all these things that I didn't want to do. But one day they will come back and it will benefit you. Maybe you start a company, you become a CEO, and now you have to deal with project managers and QA and clients. And now you have, a lot of this knowledge that nobody else has.
You win some, you learn some.
Thank you so much for listening.
For show notes and transcripts, visit us at mentoringdevelopers.com.